Hey, are you thinking about a move? If so, I have the greatest podcast episode in the history of podcast episodes, really, forever. I reveal to you right here, right now, as a part of this episode, the best place in the entire world to live. If you look good in orange, that is. We talk about who has and who doesn't have the world's best coffee. What that question has to do with your faith and why the combination of those two may not just be bad for you, but literally dangerous for the entire world. And all of this will happen on the way to answering the question, who has the world's best coffee? Welcome to the Sky Pilot podcast that explores questions of faith, spirituality, and religion. I'm Dan Matthews, and I don't have all the answers, but I do enjoy the questions. Welcome to the podcast where every question is an invitation into a spiritual quest, and you're invited along for the journey. Hi, I'm Dan, and welcome to Sky Pilot Faith Quest Podcast, the video version. Do me a favor, I'd really appreciate it. Click on the like, that's the thumbs up button, and be sure to subscribe. And if you want to experience the trifecta act of 3 wonderful acts of kindness, generosity, and good vibes, then ring that bell as well. So I'm watching my favorite sports talk show the other day, and the show is called The Herd. And if you haven't heard of the show called The Herd, you can't get this kind of clever wordplay anywhere else.
Yes, and there's probably a really good reason for that.
Yeah, okay, my favorite sports show is called The Herd, which is a name that probably doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of today's mentality.
As much as it pains me to agree with you, I do love that show.
Yeah, me too. I mean, everyone everywhere seems to be telling us that we should avoid being stuck following the herd. What we're supposed to want is to be individuals breaking free of the herd. Want to know which golf ball to use? Well, evidently the trick is not succumbing to the herd mentality.
The herd mentality. It's everywhere in nature. What drives this primal urge to use the most played ball instead of the superior one?
By the way, just as an aside, as much as we like to, in our society, speak poorly of the herd mentality, people who talk about it in this way don't really understand what it is. I mean, there are names for herd animals who break away from the pack and go it on their own. Those animals, the ones filled with a strong sense of individuality, you can call them any one of a number of names: prey, food, or just dead, because they don't last long apart from the herd. So anyway, I don't think I've ever heard anyone in popular culture speak in a positive way about being part of a herd, any herd. So why on earth would anyone name a sports talk show The Herd? Well, in this case, if you haven't seen it or don't know who the host is, well, it's going to make a lot more sense when you do. The host is named Colin Cowherd. His name is pronounced like C-O-W-A-R-D, Coward, but it's spelled like cow herd. So I guess when picking a show name based on his last name, he could have gone with a couple of choices. He could have called it The Cows, The Cowards, or The Herd. And when you think about his choices, and in that way, it kind of makes sense that he went in the direction that he did, doesn't it?
So is that what this episode is about? His last name's relationship with the show name? Nicely done. Bold topic choice, my friend.
No. I was watching his show the other day, and he was talking about some of the problems he sees with the Dallas Cowboys football team. Hey, there's another theme going on right there. I started with the herd, and now I've brought in the Cowboys. How great is that?
Again, what is the point here?
Well, anyway, he makes a point that I thought was pretty insightful regarding the Cowboy franchise and how it relates to the world's greatest cup of coffee. See, we're coming around to it. He says that the Cowboys, maybe more than any other franchise, love their team.
Isn't that the point of a team? You're supposed to support your team with undying loyalty and all that.
Yeah, good point. This is not just about their having a lot of team spirit. But his point is that once the Cowboys have brought in a player in almost any position on the team, they seem to lose the ability to see that player with any kind of objectivity. Okay, I should just let him say it for himself, and it'll be a lot clearer than what I'm talking about right now.
Think about it. You know what the Cowboys are? The diner that has that sign out in front. World's best coffee. Nobody believes that except for the guy that owns the diner. Your diner doesn't have the world's best hamburger or best cup of coffee or best omelet. It doesn't. If you want to believe it, that's adorable. But the Cowboys are $1 billion business. They shouldn't be in the adorable business.
I loved this analogy from him when I heard it. The world's best cup of coffee. Now, I'm not an expert on football, so I'm not here to defend his point about the Cowboys. I really don't need to hear from a lot of people about their opinions about the Cowboys. But the point, in a more general way, works in relationship to many aspects of life, even faith and religion. I remember going back to high school for a reunion quite a few years ago, and I was chatting with someone who had graduated from the same school, gone to college in the same town as the school, gotten married, settled down, had a career, all in that same town that we went to high school in. And what was interesting was that this person told me as a part of this conversation, and not very subtly, that they felt sorry for me that I had moved away. Why? Because according to them, this town where they grew up, where they went to high school, where they went to school, where they now lived, was the greatest place in the entire world. And anyone who chose to or had to live anywhere else in the world was, well, settling for dramatically less. Now, the town we're talking about is Knoxville, Tennessee, but before you think this is a story about Knoxville, I've heard the same kind of thing said about Atlanta. I've heard it said about New Orleans. I've heard it said about Los Angeles. I've heard it about Boulder, Colorado, Chicago, Seattle, and I'm not even going to mention how often I've heard something similar come from the mouth of a New Yorker or someone from Texas. Yeah, people from Texas just claim the whole state.
So what you want us to understand is that you aren't even going to mention the things that you just mentioned. If I got it right.
Look, here's my point. Is Knoxville a great place to live? Yeah, I really thought so when I lived there, and I'd gladly live there again if that's where my journey winds up taking me. Is Knoxville the best city in the world to live in? Yeah, yes it is. If you place a high priority on living near a river, and you choose also to live someplace that is in close proximity to the mountains. If you love college sports in addition to all of that, and you look great in the color orange, and you already know all of the words to the song Rocky Top, it may well be one of the best. No, if all of that is true, all of those qualifications, we can just say that it would be the best place in the world to live. Yeah, without a doubt. But there are a bunch of reasons that it's also not. And I won't belabor the point, but suffice it to say, if being near great scuba diving was your priority, or proximity to world-class surfing was at the top of your list, or perhaps living car-free in a city with amazing transit system was what you wanted more than anything else in your hometown, if you want to live someplace where you can speak French and have a view from your home of the Eiffel Tower, I don't think there are actually many of those places, but then no, it probably isn't the best place for you to live. The point of this is that this kind of world's best coffee mentality is not just found in sports franchises or hometowns, but also in religion. Look, I'm an ordained minister, and I spent my entire working career talking about God from within one denomination, which is a subset of one particular faith. And I have certainly heard some Episcopalians who make something like the world's greatest coffee claim, not about coffee, but about a wide variety of aspects of the Episcopal Church, why they believe it is the best church anywhere. And I've heard the same claim said over the years by Catholics, Baptists, Presbyterians, Lutherans, even Unitarians, and not just Christians. I've heard similar things from Buddhists, Muslims, and Jews. I think there is, at times, within all faiths, at least in terms of my experience, a muddling that happens, confusion that is a blending of the idea that the Creator that we worship and the particular ways in which we have decided to worship that God are the same thing. In other words, God and the way you decide to worship God are not exactly the same. There is a separate distinction between those two. I was watching a YouTube video a couple of days ago, and it was a very engaging speaker, a Christian speaker. And what he did a little later in his talk was begin to point out how other denominations within the Christian faith were wrong about a number of things and leading people astray. And the more he spoke, the more I realized that his judgments about wrongness were really more matters of preference, opinion, and tradition, rather than truly things that are verifiably right or wrong. One of the marks of a healthy faith is a willingness to move out of the best versus worst, right versus wrong, categorizing of your faith and other faiths, and move towards a willingness to say, this is what works for me. Pretty much everyone who worships God in any form believes in an all-powerful and infallible creator God. God, kind of by definition, is perfect. But, and this is a major part of my point here, our versions of worshiping and following God equally are kind of by definition not perfect, very much imperfect. Your faith, your denomination, your religion do not have an exclusive inside track on the true nature of God. All of us who are people of faith, all of us are working all the time trying to figure that stuff out. And nobody has it nailed down. Now, you may believe that you do, and that everyone else who differs from you in any way is wrong, but the only people who agree with you are part of your same group. Remember what Colin said in that piece I played for you? The diner that claims to have the world's best coffee, it doesn't, but it's adorable.
Your diner doesn't have the world's best hamburger or best cup of coffee or best omelet. It doesn't. If you want to believe it, that's adorable.
Unfortunately, religions and churches that claim to have the only insight into the nature of God aren't adorable. They are dangerous. Can you imagine how many of the problems, disagreements, conflicts, shoot, let's just say it right here, wars, would have been absolutely avoidable if we could get out of the world's best coffee mentality and just say, I love my church. I love my faith. I love my denomination. It's sometimes flawed. It's made some mistakes, but I believe it helps me be a better person. And I'm fully capable at the same time that I love my own faith of saying that I think it is great that you have found the path that works for you. What a great place this world would be if we could all just say that to each other and truly believe it, and then actually live it. That's all for today. What do you think? I know this will make some people very uncomfortable because for some, to have a strong faith is synonymous with, well, discounting the faiths of others. Some people will believe that in order for their faith to be right for them, it has to be more absolute than just that. It has to be right, period. And by their definition, everyone else has to be wrong. Many people believe that allowing others to believe differently and not pointing out to them how they are wrong and you are right is, well, for those people, by definition, kind of living a lukewarm faith. So you tell me, can you have a vibrant, devout, and strong faith and still allow others to follow different spiritual paths than yours? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And if this sparks a question for you that you'd like to hear discussed in future episodes, leave that in the comment section below as well. And as always, I would love to hear from you. On your spiritual journey, may you ask questions, seek answers, and boldly go wherever the quest takes you. Thanks for joining us here today and being part of the SkyPilot Faith Quest community. This is a great place to ask questions you wouldn't feel comfortable or safe asking in other places. And remember, the sign of a strong faith, solid religion, or healthy spiritual journey is not certainty, but that you keep asking questions.